Good afternoon, everyone. This is James Hicks here from Hicks New Media and Infotainment News. Thank you for joining me today. We have a very special show today. Christian Karasiewicz is with us. He is the content marketing manager at StreamYard, which is a SaaS-based live streaming platform. Many of you know StreamYard is actually the platform that we use here on ITN Live. Christian has been in the game for a long time, from his contributor days at Social Media Examiner, his executive leadership role at Social Chefs, where his team provided professional training on social media marketing. More recently, he serves as co-host of the Launch Your Life podcast, where he and Jim Fuhs help their audience launch professional live video streams. I definitely have a trusted subject matter expert here with us today. We're going to spend some time talking with Christian about live streaming overall, how StreamYard is really disrupting the overall live streaming industry and their go-to-market strategy. Hopefully we'll have some questions, but I'm going to pick his brain. Outside of that, let's get into it, y'all. Mr. Karasiewicz, now where did he go? He turned his camera off. Christian, where are you, sir? I see you in the back, but I can't see you in the front. I'm going to blame it on 2020 internet issues coming on the East Coast. Maybe it's a nor'easter or something coming, but I'm sure he'll be back in just a second. You got to love live streaming. You got to love doing demonstrations and things like that live. So his machine just restarted, ladies and gentlemen. So I got a text message from Christian. So I won't blame it on StreamYard. I will blame that again, probably on his internet provider or whatever system that he's using, and give him a hard time on that. But I think maybe if Gage is watching, maybe if Dan is watching, that's going to cost him a StreamYard pillow. I've been trying to win a StreamYard pillow for the longest time, so that's going to cost him for sure. I could sing a song, I could do a dance, but at the end of the day, today's show is going to be about live streaming. All right, so let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Here I am with the man who controls everything. I pumped you up with, subject matter expert, and now he's rebooting his machine right when we go live. What's going on, man?
Actually, I got to say, so I'm using one of the new Mac M1s, and
all right,
got to say the machine works great, except this one time. So,
dude,
I got to say,
it's
a fantastic machine.
We're live all over the globe. LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that. And then you decide to do a system update on your machine. That's going to cost you a pillow. That's going to cost you a StreamYard pillow.
Who knows what it is? I'm not really sure what the issue was there, but yes. So what did I miss actually in the?
Well, I hyped you up and
okay.
I did a little song and dance, did a little juggling, but other than that, I was just prefacing the audience in terms of what we were going to talk about. But you know what? That's the beauty of live streaming. That's the beauty of actually having these dialogues point in time without being recorded. You get what you get, and it could be either the system, it could be either the platform, the environment, and you have to be able to be flexible with that. But outside of that, Christian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, man. Very well. Yeah. And exactly. Like, here's the thing. You and I were just having a conversation right before you hit start on your broadcast. And then, yeah, all of a sudden my webcam said, "Hey, I'm done." And that's the thing with live streaming. I mean, there's a lot of different things, challenges that can always arise. So, for example, maybe I was doing a system update. I don't know, maybe, beforehand. And here's the thing. I mean, I simply, I had an issue, and what did I do? I just said, "Hey, James," I got my phone out and I said, "Hey, James, you know what?
Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna, let you know I'm coming right back." And then you know exactly what to do. And then here I am. So it was, maybe a minute or two. So for those of you watching, by the way, sorry about that. But that's the thing. That's the one thing with live streaming. I mean, it's every show is never going to be exactly the same. You put the equipment up, and then all of a sudden maybe you make some change, whether it's a software change or whether, you're you're working really hard on your computer one day, and then all of a sudden everything decides it wants to just, change. So I just say this, I mean, roll with the punches and, and get going. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about that, right? Again, the anomalies, the gremlins in the system, and kind of tail that into kind of the benefit of StreamYard being a SaaS-based environment. But before I go into that, if you could give kind of your elevator pitch in terms of who you are. I know I already did kind of the introduction, but I'd like to hear it directly from you as well, sir.
Okay. So I'm the content marketing manager for StreamYard. So if I'm gonna give a little plug, I guess, if you do want to write for StreamYard, you can go to streamyard.com/contact, and there's a link on the page, and you can fill out a form. It'll come right to me. So feel free to reach out if you're big on live streaming and you have some information you want to share with people. I'd love to have you write for us. Aside from that, I also run Social Chefs. It's a digital agency, and in addition to that, I also host my own live show called Social Chatter. It's the longest running social media marketing talk show where we cover what's new every single week in social media with myself, my co-host Jim Fuhs, and a guest that we find, that's someone who's not, we don't like to use the term like expert. We like to say, they're a digital marketing professional, because then because everybody brings something unique to the table. And then in addition to that, I also run a podcast called Launch Your Live. And that is also something I run with Jim Fuhs as well. And basically what we do is we break down all of the live streaming topics people might have, whether it's where to find guests, certain tools they should use, maybe some tools, for example, if they want to do like multi-streaming. We also talk about things you need to do before your show, after your show, making a run of show, all that fun stuff. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And those are really the things that have kind of drawn me more to communicate with you as well on various social platforms, because that whole mechanics piece, right? The operational side, I love, and I'm deep into the analytics. I've got screens going over here. I'm seeing where folks are coming from different platforms and things like that. And I like that, because that helps you overall become better at your craft, more targeted to your audiences, and make sure that you have a more successful outgoing, irregardless of whatever it is you're trying to do. Let me back up now and kind of go back to what I was asking you before we had the glitch at the start, but StreamYard being the SaaS-based platform, and I like to specifically say SaaS and not say browser-based, right? Because there is a difference, right? Because I come from the technologist field, and I understand and know the difference. System issues like that would not cause the stream itself to crash, because there's so much redundancy that's built into the back end of the environment. I'm not sure if folks really appreciate and understand that, to be honest. So can you go into a little bit of that just from your perspective about the platform that we're actually using, and how, you've got the tenets of it being easy to use, flexible. What was the other tenet there?
So
easy to use, stability, and providing professional streams, right? What do those tenets really mean when you have a SaaS-based platform?
Well, I mean, the key thing is this: a lot of people, when they want to get into live streaming, if you want to do, so I started doing live streaming for very large conferences, and they were online, but they're primarily also in person. And so in order to do a real stream, it takes a lot of equipment. So I'm going to try to like kind of like distill this down. So like it takes a lot of equipment. So you've got teams of people that are, you've got people that are working front of house, you've got people working back of house, and they're all controlling different facets. So you've got somebody that's, for example, piping in the music. You've got someone behind the scenes that, hey, if somebody's reading a presentation and they're wanting to read from a teleprompter, they might actually be moving the teleprompter for the person on screen. That's something that's coordinated. You've got, again, a run of show, which James, that's how you and I kind of got hooked up here. In addition to that, though, you've got all these different pieces. And the thing is, a lot of people, they don't go into it knowing about all these pieces. They think, oh, well, hey, I'm just going to hit go live and, my internet's going to handle everything. And, I'm going to just use a computer that I've had for like 20 years or something like that. Right. And so here's the thing. The great thing about the way StreamYard works is that, as you mentioned, it's browser based. And so you don't have to have an extremely powerful machine to do all of these different functions. Instead, the browser is handling. So we're handling it, all of it behind the scenes, basically. So that way somebody can come in and they don't have to, for example, the barrier to entry, they don't have to go and buy a really expensive laptop, or they don't, for the most part, by the way, a gaming laptop is a great laptop to use because, it has a lot of the beefier internals, i.e. the real graphics card, and plenty of RAM, a hard drive space, a fast hard drive. The display is important, but it's not as important because you're using the webcam or your camera, for example, but all those pieces are important usually when you're doing like super high end production, because as you're plugging things in and doing, running all this equipment, it's pulling off of that computer. And if it's not strong enough, that's where a lot of people's streams. Then you have that, then you have internet, for example. If the internet's also not capable, you have all these pieces. And the thing is, they're working against one another when they should be working together. And so that's the great thing about StreamYard is that, it's browser based. People can go live on pretty much almost any machine they're using. Again, when you have some of those pieces and you have higher quality equipment, it does help, but it's not required. And so that's part of it. And then the other thing is, for people to, for example, produce a professional looking stream, I mean, you can have, and you and I talked about this briefly, James, beforehand, you can have all of the most expensive equipment. You can have the most expensive camera and microphone and all this other stuff, but it really comes down to the content that people are going to be consuming.
That's true.
So you don't have to make that initial investment. It helps, but it's not required. And so, really the key thing is making sure that your stream looks and sounds the best that it can. And ideally, I want to stress sounds the best. Because James, as audio is the most important part of a live stream. If your video feed, for example, is a little bit choppy, people can't really completely make out, or they can't make out what's behind you. For example, like James, I can't make out what are those liquor bottles?
Well, you don't want to look at those liquor bottles there, but let me take the blur off there. There they go. There we go. I'll take the blur off of them.
So, but here's the thing. I mean, a lot of people, it doesn't matter what necessarily is behind you it's what you're presenting to somebody. And they want to be able to hear that. And so that's why it's most important.
Well, and the strategically placed, like I was saying, StreamYard mug back there. So, little plug for the company.
And by the way, it's a great mug. I have to say it's a fantastic, it's the biggest coffee mug that I have ever had.
It is huge. That's good stuff. You talk, and that's kind of what I want to dig really deep into as well. So now we've talked about the platform and the fact that, it's quite robust in terms of replication and ensuring that, again, your overall stream doesn't go down just because one of the participants goes down, which is fantastic. The fact that you can actually go live from a mobile device. I've actually shot a show from an iPad standing in front of the Pacific Ocean a couple of weeks ago, and it worked perfectly. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting dynamic that you mentioned, and I agree with you 100% that the sound, not just the video, but the sound is most important. So let's talk a little bit about some of that infrastructure. And again, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money, but you have to you get what you pay for a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And finding the right equipment, I think, is critical. There's a lot of manufacturers out there, right? There's Blue microphones, there's Shure, there's all these other companies in terms of microphones, things like that nature. Yep. That being the most important piece, I guess, in any type of stream, even outside of lights and camera. Mm-hmm. XLR versus USB. Kind of give your conversation, your take on that. I know you're using an XLR mic right there, and again, what are you particularly using right now?
Okay, so industry standard is an XLR connection. So that's industry standard. So like it may look a little weird. It's a round adapter. There's 3 prongs on it. You may have never seen this cable in your life because most of us were all used to USB. And so here's the thing: industry standard. That's what people use. So you have that side of things. Now the thing is, when you try to use an XLR microphone, which is the standard, it doesn't plug directly into your computer. You'll notice the cable is actually a lot, even the connector is bigger than your laptop probably entirely.
Yeah.
And so the way that works is basically, you need an XLR connection, and then you need a mixer or an audio interface. So you can't just plug that microphone into your computer. You use the mixer or the audio interface that plugs directly into your computer. And then here's the great thing about mixers and audio interfaces. So they allow you to control different things. For example, I'm using a Rodecaster Pro. It's a mixing board, and it's not just me plugging in one microphone. For example, this allows me to plug in 4 microphones. It allows me to plug in a smartphone, for example, so I can do a call-in show. And there's even a Bluetooth option as well. So if I have additional, for example, if James and I were meeting in the same place, I'd plug everything into one device, and then everything would be able to be routed through there. Now, the reason I use this is because all of the channels they're separate. So for example, if I had James plugged into this and I was like, well, hey, his audio needs to be a little bit louder. I don't have to be like, well, James, can you speak up louder? I can make the adjustments on the mixer or the audio interface. And then all that then runs into my computer. So XLR mics, I mean, there's lots of different options. I'm using the Shure SM7B. There's also it's an interesting microphone because it's actually a very old microphone, but it's one that is still a standard that just about everyone uses. That one though, it's on the pricier side. It's about $400. They have their little brother. It's the Shure MV7. Now that microphone, it's also XLR, but it has another benefit, and it has a USB option. So it's $250 instead of $400. It adds in an additional input. And so the benefit there is that, if you want to use it just with a computer, you can plug it in via USB, or if you want to have that audio interface, you can also plug it directly into that. So it gives you some options. I think you can also actually use it on both plugs at the same time, which is pretty handy. So those are super useful. Now, going though into some other options here, I mean, so a lot of people, they look at mics and they're like, well, I don't want to spend $250 or $400. There are other options. A lot of people, as you mentioned, James, a lot of people will use the Blue Yeti, for example. And the Blue Yeti there is a USB option. There's also one that's USB and XLR. And I think if my pricing's right, I think that one's even like $250.
That was about $250 for that one. Yeah.
And so here's the thing. I started out with the Blue Yeti. I had the standard USB mic. I didn't buy the XLR because I really didn't know about XLR when I got started. Thing with that mic, it was a good mic for what I needed it for, but it also takes up a lot of space on your desk. If you're someone who travels a lot, it's not portable. You can put it in a box and take it with you, but it's a big microphone.
But it's heavy. Yeah. I mean, that thing is a beast.
Yeah. And so for example, right there, if I'm spending $250, I would honestly rather just buy the Shure MV7 because it's a better microphone. It doesn't have the glitz and the glamour necessarily that the Blue model does, but it doesn't have to because it's got it's a high quality mic. So if I'm going microphones, I'd go SM7B, I'd go MV7. I would then, even in the middle of this, if I wanted just an XLR microphone, I'd go with like a Shure SM58. This is a handheld microphone. So you have to get you'd have to get a tabletop stand, but you basically can put that one on a stand. You can move it. It's pretty portable. By the way, you can even take this microphone, the Shure SM7B, and put that on a tabletop as well. So you don't have to have the boom arm like I have here. So you can put it on there. That's about $100 microphone there. And then if I want something that's also USB and XLR, I'd even look at the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. That's about $100 microphone. And it's very similar to the Shure SM58. It's a handheld microphone, but you can put it on a tabletop stand, but it can work USB and it can work XLR. And then If I want to go even a step further, there's also, let me think what else. The name actually escapes me, but there's a whole nother, if you look up ATR 2100 on say Amazon, you'll pull up an $80 version as well. It's the same exact product.
Okay.
So those, so that's where I'd say, like, from a gamut of microphones, that's what I would actually say that people should look at. Now, one other really good piece of advice, if you happen to have a Guitar Center, and I'm not plugging these companies just because, but, like, for example, I'm serious, if you have a Guitar
No,
Center,
that's where I bought my very first microphone, at the Guitar Center. I went in there for whatever reason. I was supposed to DJ a wedding, and I went in there, and yeah. So I'll let you go ahead, but don't sleep on the Guitar Center for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. And so here's the thing. A lot of people, they look at Guitar Center and they say, oh, well, Guitar Center is not necessarily, like, they don't equate live video or live streaming with Guitar Center. But here's the thing. Guitar Center has every single one of these microphones that we're talking about because, for example, if it's the Shure SM7B, this is what a lot of musicians use. So, like, I don't know if you've been following, like, James, if you've been following Foo Fighters, what Dave Grohl was doing for Hanukkah, he was basically covering various bands. I don't know if you happen to see this. It's actually really cool. So he was covering all these bands, and he's using a Shure SM7B to do his vocals for these songs. So so don't sleep on Guitar Center. I mean, they have the MV7, they've got the SM7B, they've got the Blue Yetis, they've got the ones beyond the actual USB Blue Yeti. They've got their Studio series, so they've got those. Yeah. They even have so you may want to check out, like, a Heil PR40. That's another good microphone. That one's, I think, a couple $100s as well. There's just a whole range. And the reason I'd also say you should test them out in person, part of it is so you can understand, do I have enough space for the microphone? Now, we're not talking like, oh, this microphone's going to take up a whole desk. It's going to take up a chunk of your desk. So you may look at it and say, well, hey, this microphone, for example, my Shure SM7B, it's hooked up to an arm on my desk. So if I don't have space for that, for example, or I don't have the budget, then maybe I want to look at something else. But the other thing also that I think is important here, when we talk about audio and we talk about live streaming, is that, we have to think of it strategically. So, for example, James, you and I also talked about this. When I first got started, I had a Zoom H5N. It was a little handheld recorder that had a microphone, has a microphone, and it plugged into my computer and it worked as an audio interface. Now, here's the thing, though. It was not the right type of microphone for me to do live streaming. When I talked into it, it had a cone. And so it picked up all of the sound around it and whatnot. And so if I'm over there typing on a keyboard, it was picking all that up. So it was interfering, if you think about it, with my live stream. So it was partly also making sure I got the right microphone for the job. And
that's true.
As you and I mentioned, I mean, it's a strategic play. So you don't want to just, don't jump into, like, well, let me buy the $400 microphone. If you've never, for example, if you've never done live streaming, don't buy the $400 microphone. You should start with, I'd even start with the SM58 or the ATR 2100, $100 microphone. It's a good quality microphone. By the way, Rode also makes really good microphones. They make a pod mic, $100.
Yeah.
Also a really good microphone. So $100 right there. And then you can build, because those microphones, for example, if you don't have the budget for an audio interface, or a mixer, like, you could, for example, maybe get the $100 microphone. And then they, like, for example, if you want a little small mixer, there's a Go XL, 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 X.
First it was problems with his machine. Now it's problems with his audio. He's coming back. I'm gonna give him a hard time when he comes back too. I'll wait till his camera comes on. Great conversation. Obviously, for sure, talking about the audio quality. I'm gonna give him a hard time about this though. This is like, Ripley's Believe It or Not, America's Funniest Home Videos. And the fact that I'm shooting this on LinkedIn Live as well, gold, right? You can't make this up. So um, I'm riding with the punches, and I love the fact that this is happening. Oh, dude, hey, that's strike two there. No, so
I know what the issue is actually.
so what? Yeah, what happened there, man? What happened there?
So
What happened?
I have one of those USB-C hubs.
Yeah,
and I think it's overpowered because it's literally running. It's running a monitor, it's running a camera, and it's running a mixer.
Oh my god!
So,
well, you got to go spend some of that Christmas money and get yourself some.
I know, right? Got to get a
some
Thunderbolt hub or something.
Right? You got the mic right. We were talking about that, but now you got to get your hub going or something right there.
So let's talk about that real quick. Actually, so I'm using a USB-C hub.
Yeah.
Basically, it's it allows you, if you're running a MacBook Pro, it allows you to run multiple things through it. I'm not using one of the like stock, like, the $20 ones. I've got like a Satechi, I think it is. And here's the thing. You have to remember, you can't plug in a ton of stuff into these things. Like as you plug in stuff, it's drawing power. And at the same time, it also only can support so much. So, even if it has, for example, this has like 3 USB ports, an HDMI port, Ethernet, and like a USB-C port. I can't plug everything into it at the same time, even though the ports are there. The thing people need to realize is that you want to offload some of those things. So for example, I may want to consider getting a power dock that then has one cable that goes into my device, and it's not pulling everything directly into this. I mean, this thing is literally this big. I mean, it's tiny.
Yeah. I know the one you got, and I'm gonna put on the screen the one that I'm using here right now. But I agree with you.
CalDigit or Anchor?
It's Targets.
Oh, nice. Okay, I was just looking at these the other day, actually.
Yeah, so I've got my monitors plugged into there, and then obviously all my other connections. This is what's controlling everything. One dongle going into my laptop, and that offloads all of that power. But again, it's one of those things. You're going to get what you pay for. You're going to have to pay a couple of bucks to get it, but it alleviates you having those kinds of issues of overburdening your system, your desktop, or your laptop. Yeah.
And to that point right there, one other thing that I think is really important about the one you have there, for example, this one, yours has 100-watt power, which means, it's plugging into power, but then it's able to actually supply power. So, that's one thing to think about is like, what am I plugging into that dock for my live stream? Because literally all I have running right now is my live stream, and I'm using a hub, and that's potentially where my issues are arising. So you do have to think about that. So
I'm loving this. So all of these glitches are good though, right? Because again, folks would typically get
flustered,
just flustered and distracted and all that. But again, these are the real world scenarios. So I love having the fact that some things are going kind of awry. Let's talk about
software either. That's the thing. It's not software. That's the thing. It's hardware. So it's like, so it's like, so I'll give you an example. So it's like somebody saying, well, hey, I want to run a live stream, and they want to use like a Chromebook. A Chromebook is it's an internet enabled device. So it requires the internet for doing everything.
Yeah.
So when you don't have the internet, you're plugging a whole bunch of stuff in, and then you're trying to run your stream, and you're trying to also then sync to like Google Drive and things like that. It's taking internet resources. So that's also another thing.
Go down.
Internet needs to be sufficient. Okay, so what's the next question?
That's so true with that. So we talked about the audio from a video perspective, I say primary, secondary, kind of tertiary. From a video perspective, this whole year, there's been a couple of things that have happened in 2020. Yeah, the world has gone completely 180 degrees and all, but I think a lot of folks have started to get into streaming content. They've got a voice, they've got a message, so they've gotten into that. You couldn't find a webcam anywhere, right?
Not at
no
all.
no Best Buy, no Micro Center, no Amazon, no nothing. They were in rare supply, or if you found one, it was 3 times the price because you got it from somewhere that you typically wouldn't buy.
Okay.
Talk about webcams. Talk about using DSLRs, mirrorless type of cameras. So what does your setup look like right now from the video side?
So right now, from a video side, I'm using a Logitech Brio 4K webcam. I'm not streaming in 4K. I've got it set to like, I think 1080p. I do vary that though, based on the location. So here's what I will typically do. I did a lot of traveling, especially last year, year before that. and I was running my show Social Chatter from around the world. Now, one thing I would always do though is whenever I had a show, I would always make sure I took that camera with me, but I would always scout out what the internet was like. So, for example, I wouldn't just assume, okay, I'm just going to hook my laptop up and it's going to start working. I would try to do some tests beforehand, doing like speedtest.net, seeing what my upload and download speeds were, testing out downloads of certain things to see what the speeds were like. And the reason I would do this beforehand is so that it would help me actually decide if I was actually going to run my show that week or not. And there were a few times where I was in a very remote location and I didn't have I had really bad internet, to the point where I couldn't run my live stream because it was, the place that I was in, for example, you didn't even get like 1 or 2 megabits per second upload. Like it was really bad. And so
that's how it is in Vegas when we go to CES. And we know, so I've been there for the past 8 years or so, and I know when you're in those halls, you can't plug in and do anything live because you're in a fallout shelter for the most part.
No, and so here's what I would do though in that situation. So I mentioned I have a co-host, and so when I would get there, I'd be in communication with him, like, hey, I just got here. The internet is like so. Can you do me a favor and host the show? So I would have him run the show, and then I would join as basically the co-host. And so therefore he was able to run things on his end. We were able to use his internet connection. And then mine was kind of like, I might, for example, even put mine in audio only mode if the video, for example, was not working like I wanted it to. And that's the thing. It goes back to, if the audio is good, don't try to do the video if you're not capable of doing the video. Just do it audio only. So that way you still maintain the integrity of your stream. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and that's a good point as well, right? Maintaining that integrity of the stream, because a lot of times, especially so now with the ability, bringing it back to StreamYard, we have the ability to pull down both the audio and the video files. And what I'll typically do is take that audio file and upload that to my syndicated podcast. So again, if one of the mechanisms is down, there's ability to have another stream of content, so the audio as opposed to just a video. Good point.
Definitely. And I'll say this, another thing you can also do, so not to sell people on software, but if you do want to, for example, get a higher quality recording, or even want to try to capture 2 streams, I like to use a tool called Audio Hijacked. And so it's by a company called Rogue Amoeba. And the way that it works basically is it allows you to set up various channels to then be recorded. And so the way that it works is, for example, I have my standard stream coming through the browser, but then if I'm like, well, hey, I want to have a higher quality recording, or I want to have a very unique recording, I can, pipe in exactly what I want into that stream.
Gotcha.
So definitely something worth checking out. That's to help you like get a stream. And then you can also use a tool called Loopback, which will allow you to control what is routed. It's basically the cabling. It's a virtual cabling system.
Yeah.
So, for people that, if you're beyond the like, hey, I'm just going to join the stream, if you want to take it a step further, that's where I consider using a tool like that. Those also help, by the way, because they help you also route, like if you want to do sound effects or background music or any of that stuff as well, you can run them through the software as well.
Without having to buy something like an ATM Mini or something like that and spending the hundreds of dollars on that physical piece of hardware. You can do it all in software. That's a good point.
Right. And the ATM Mini, that's the thing. The ATM Mini is it's a hardware switcher. So like, for example, if let's talk cameras real quick. So I have a Logitech Brio that will not work with an ATEM Mini. It only works for an HDMI connection. You can't convert a webcam to HDMI.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So in that case, like for people that are like, well, hey, everybody's telling me to get the ATEM Mini. The ATEM Mini is good if you have, for example, multiple camera angles, but you also have to make sure you have the right camera. And so if you're using like the $60 Logitech webcam, you don't need an ATEM Mini. Like, it's not going to help you with that. But, if you want to get into doing some like different scene switches, plugging in, for example, an iPad and things like that, like, yeah, you could do that and play those as screens. But, it comes down to what camera you're using to begin with. So if you don't have the right camera, it's not going to work. It's a very expensive paperweight at that point.
Yeah. Why spend the money if you're, like you say, using just a Logitech camera that doesn't take advantage of that? Yeah.
And that gets to the point of like, I've talked about this, we talked about run of show,
yeah,
and having a structure for your show. And here's the thing, you don't need all of this. Like you need, if I were making the investment, make the investment in a microphone, a good quality microphone, an audio interface or a mixer, and then a camera. And here's the thing, when you go into the camera aspect, you also might need to buy a dongle or an adapter, not just for plugging into your computer, but for running the actual camera itself.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're going to get, let's see, there's the Sony Alpha, like 6100, the 6400, those can connect, but you typically will need a cam link from Elgato. And that's like, that alone is what, $150, I think. So it's
yes,
like,
it was.
You need a capture card and you need the camera, and those cameras aren't cheap. So that's like, I mean, right there alone, that might be what, $800, to be able to just that's just to plug the camera into your computer and then be able to use it for live streaming.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, speaking of capture card, so I started, so I'm using the Sony ZV-1, right? The vlogger camera from Sony, and it's phenomenal. But I started with one of those $15 capture cards off of Amazon, and it was okay. Let me tell you, when I plugged in the Elgato Cam Link though, and just saw the functionality and the capabilities in that. Again, I've said it like a recurring theme here. You get what you pay for. Start with what you can, obviously, to get your show up and going, to get your environment up and going. But you definitely want to focus on quality equipment as you progress through your stages. And there is a short list of components I think that a lot of folks are recommending. You always hear folks talk about the same Shure microphone. You always hear folks talking about either a Brio, maybe Logitech. I would say Logitech, not necessarily the StreamCam all the time. They came out with the StreamCam, which was okay.
Yeah.
Always talk about CamLink. Always talk about the Stream Deck. There are specific tools that are out there for when you really want to level up your game and make your stream look professional. And then from a software perspective, or from a platform perspective, I know we're talking StreamYard primarily just for the functionality that it provides, but there's a few others that also provide some more of the advanced features, right? Especially if you want to start doing something beyond like an OBS or something. OBS is brutal. I tried OBS for like a week, and I swear all my hair fell out. But there's a couple of other ones.
And that's another one of those, kind of playing off your point there. I mean, that's another one of those you get what you pay for type things.
Yeah.
Like it's free software. So like no one's gonna argue with free. But if you're like, there's a learning curve to it. And so that's one thing like people have to remember. Like it's not like, I think it's open source software. So people are able to use it. It's going to add some functionality that may not be built in, but you have to keep in mind that with that, you're going to get the bugs. So, you do have to work with that. Like you have to figure it out essentially how it works, based on what you're going to do.
That's true. I love these comments that are coming in from Corey. I don't know if he caught the point when I said, Corey, I started out with that $15 capture card from Amazon, but then I did have to kind of level up a little bit. OBS is not brutal for me. It was tough. I have no patience of reading any instruction manuals. I've always been like that. I'm a break it and fix it guy.
Here's the thing though. It comes down to the type of person that you are. I mean, if you're someone who, for example, if you're not a technologically savvy person, like if you're just like, hey, I just want to do live streaming, then get some of the equipment we talked about, like the microphone, get the camera, and then start your show. You don't need much of anything else beyond that. Again, I mean, what I was trying to, I guess, get across is the fact that like, if you're going to buy a microphone and you're going to, for example, drop $250 on a microphone, that just because it, like maybe you saw it at like a big box electronics store, for example, you're more than able to buy a better microphone for less money. It's just that it's not what the big box store, for example, is going to carry. And so the point I'm just trying to drive home there is that because I mean, I'm guilty of this. I mean, I bought a Blue Yeti when I first got started, and I think I paid $150. And then since then I bought an SM58 that was $100. I finally upgraded to the Shure SM7B. That's $400. And I had this paperweight. And had I actually taken the time and done my due diligence, I would not have necessarily spent the money on the Blue Yeti. I would have bought the right microphone at the time. And that's just what I want to get across to people. Like, there is going to be some overlap. You're going to buy something and then you're going to have to potentially upgrade it, but you don't have to do it at the start. That's, I think, what I want to get across to people is get what your budget allows, but also think strategically and say, well, hey, you know what? If I only have USB right now and maybe in the next year, I want to move to XLR, why don't you get a USB XLR mic? And then you don't have to rebuy your microphone. You just have to buy a mixer. So lots of good stuff there. Okay. Definitely. So what else? What else we got?
I'll tell you what. So we're gonna go kind of the line of the top three, right? So we're gonna talk microphones already. We've talked cameras already. I want to get into lighting, but I want to kind of come back to this statement here that's being made, because I wonder, do you have to deal with this kind of in your role as the content social marketing manager at StreamYard? When folks feel this way, right? When folks use something like, I don't know, on the PC side, like a vMix or something like that, like an Ecamm or any of those other more advanced tools. What is that corporate message, I guess, when you see something, something like this? And I'm, it's just a perception, right? And I guess, what's the message that you and Dan and Gabe kind of are pushing out in terms of, I know we've already talked about the three tenets of the organization, right, and what the focus is, but when you see something like this, does this deter opportunities to bring folks onto the platform, or, how does the organization respond to something like this?
I mean, here's the thing, there's software out there for everyone. And so, I would recommend, again, going back to the microphones and, the audio equipment and whatnot, just make sure you get the right equipment for what you're looking to do. Like, a lot of people, for example, will go out. I mean, I'll even say, like, I went out and before I got into live streaming, I bought the most expensive, or I think it was the most expensive, like, live streaming software, or I was saying live streaming. It was like, it was very expensive software. And here's the thing, it required a whole bunch of hardware on top of the software. And so I bought the software. I was like, oh, I found that it was frustrating to use. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I moved through various different platforms, over the years. And I mean, the key thing is, it's about the information that you're sharing. So, true. As you as I watch your show, you built your show and you have various stages to it. Like, you've got an intro, you put your overlays in place. So you got your overlays, you got your intro video. Here's the thing that matters the most to people is it's the information they're getting out of it. It's not how slickly produced it is or things like that. I mean, that's not going to necessarily get people to tune in. It's about the information that they're learning or taking away. And so,
No, I was going to say, and I wonder if kind of the percentage of advanced users and folks who want to be and think that they're advanced versus the folks who, really just want to get online and show and spread their message, whatever that may be, mm-hmm. right? Where that dynamic is. I really am a proponent, really am a user, obviously, of the StreamYard platform, because again, it's quick, it's easy, it gets it done, it looks mm-hmm. right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a pro owner of other platforms as well, and are integrating them into the workflow and the work stream, and we'll use them where appropriate. But each tool has their niche and their and kind of their marketplace as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm a pro with StreamYard. I'm a pro with the other. I will mention the other folks online, but but again, it all depends on what you're trying to do. And I think the industry is wide enough that folks can definitely fit in where they get in where they fit in. Right. Let me put it that way. Get in where they. So let's talk about lights.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, one other thing real quick. I mean, so, as you mentioned, I mean, it's also about people getting creative with what they're doing. So, for example, I've run live streams for Chamber of Commerce before, and for example, like when because people couldn't go out and do things, we did a news segment basically, and it was really cool because I was working with people who had they just all they wanted to do was stream the it was like a July 4th celebration, for example, and what we did was everyone had they had a mobile device, so all we had to do was send them the link, they joined, and they were basically able to be brought into the broadcast. And again, I mean, it was about connecting people. So it was about it wasn't about how fancy it was. Like, we accomplished that with the graphics and the music and things like that we used, but it was about also getting creative. And I love the fact that I was able to I didn't have to send someone an instruction manual on how to do something. All I had to do was say, well, hey, here's the link, join it, I'll bring you in. And then basically they were my eyes into their part of the world. Yeah. And so, that was helping people that, for example, were not able to be out and about, obviously, because of COVID and things like that. So let's switch the lighting.
And I'll say, folks, the old school folks, back in the old Hang With and Meerkat days, it was so easy back in those days, right? I mean, if we could only go back to those days, but yeah.
I used to actually host. I used to help produce the show for Plus Your Business with Martin Shervington. It was back in the Google Plus days, and so it was actually, and it was. I mean, we ran into some of the same types of challenges you always run into nowadays as well. It was it was internet, it was camera, it was lighting. I mean, lighting was a big thing, obviously. So let's talk lighting.
There you go. Good segue. I like that. Look at you.
Okay, so let's talk lighting. As you can see, I don't have any lighting right now. Actually, this is just natural light. It's not going to lie. I mean, I don't have the right lighting at the moment. I'm waiting for my lights to come in. But lighting is key. So you want to have good audio. Here's the thing. So you want to have good audio. You want to have a good camera. If you're using the webcam on your laptop, you need to probably upgrade to a webcam. Even going up to like the $60 webcam, for example. The Logitech, was it the C920 or 930? I think it is.
The C920 is kind of the one. Yeah.
That's what a lot of people buy. I mean, it's a good webcam, but you have to remember when you use those webcams, if you don't have enough light coming in, it's going to be very blocky, very pixelated, because there's a very small sensor in that device. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big step between going from there all the way up to a DSLR mirrorless camera. But lighting is very, very, very important depending on the task you want to do. So if I just want to be on camera, I could put some lights up, and it's going to help, it's going to make me look better, but at the same time, I'm going to look better for my audience, but at the same time, it's also going to improve the clarity of my video feed. So for example, I'm running a Logitech Brio, as I mentioned. I think this is at 1080p maybe, but I don't have any lighting. So as you can see, it's, a lot of the like edges and things like that are they're not sharp. Right. So lighting is key. To your point, you have really good lighting in your place, so you can see, you're very clear. You also have a better camera. So I would recommend, for lighting, making sure you have good lighting. And if you don't have any lights, if you have like, a handful of lights and it's not bright enough, add more, because that's the other thing. Like, you can always, like, the more light, if you're using a webcam, the better it's going to perform. So to Corey's point here, so do I recommend softbox or ring lights? Here's the thing. I like softboxes, but I have a ring light that I use, and that's actually what I've used for a lot of my shows. And it's basically like placed right behind or right in front of my desk, and it hits me at just the right place. There's enough depth behind myself in this background to where it'll actually reflect off this and actually look nice and be evenly lit. One thing I would say, if you're somebody who runs a ring light, you want to make sure also that, like, if you're wearing glasses, for example, the rings tend to reflect right off your glasses. So you might have like alien eyes or something like that. So,
okay, interesting.
So that's something that people need to pay attention to. I mean, don't just put the light on and be like, hey, I got lights, because there's little things like that you need to pay attention to. It's like, the ring light, for example, is a great light. A lot of people use it for photography. So if you're photographing a person, it's great for that. If you're somebody who is, let's say you're getting makeup done, for example, a lot of the beauty stores like a Sephora, places like that, they use ring lights, and that's what they use to help evenly light the person's face.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. I've got, I'm a proponent of, I've got a 3-light system going, right? So I got the one coming right in front, and I've got the
what
two.
What kind do you have? Okay, what do you have in front? Is it a ring light or or softbox?
No, it's a Dasny or Dazzle. It's I'll pull it up. I got them off of Amazon, but they're the rectangulars coming out, and I can change the color temperature, and I can change the brightness on each of them independently. I'm not going to go into the spending before a name. I want the Elgatos, but I don't want to. I don't want to buy when I'm getting phenomenal. I think performance that are the ones that I've got here. But
Yeah.
they're Elgato makes some great ones as well with their products.
That's a good point, by the way, though. So here's the thing: when we're talking lighting, you have to also look at the space. So when you use a softbox is going to put out a lot more heat. So softbox, they're bigger. They're also like, if you buy the ones that are on Amazon, for example, you buy the, you have to assemble them first of all. I'll tell you right now, it's not an easy assembly putting together a softbox. It's a stand. And then, for example, there's a stand, there's a housing with the light that goes on top. On top of that, there's 4 little bars that form the basis of the softbox. And then you got to wrap the softbox so that it's actually diffusing the light. So
not very portable either. I don't think, the softboxes.
No, I have a whole, basically it's a case that it comes in, and then you have to strategically unpack it so you can strategically put it back together. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing: like, you bought the Dasny lights; those are what, $195 each, right?
Yeah,
is that one light. Yeah,
yeah. You get two. You get the pack of 2. So yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing: those are good lights. So you can so here's what you have to think about: those lights can attach to a desk.
Yes.
Now, so in your case, you're not really going to be able to make those portable, but I mean, they're somewhat portable, but then you got to find a way to actually make them stand.
His USB connection blew up again. He'll come back after he fixes it, and I'll tell him that it's strike 3 on him. Folks watching, appreciate the fantastic questions and the dialogue, because we're all learning in terms of equipment, in terms of what each of our studios should or could look like. The recommendations that we're making are really just for from our use cases. And strike 3. No, we're gonna have to wrap this quick before before your machine or whatever completely blows up.
So back to lights. Thing. You can get the Elgato lights. They're really nice because they are super slim and they put out a lot of light. So they actually, I think those are LED lights actually.
They are. Yeah, they are LEDs. Yeah.
And here's the thing you have to think about. So if you happen to have a dedicated space that you're working in, maybe you want to get the soft boxes or the ring light, not the name brand necessarily, I'm saying not name brand. If you get like a good ring light, for example, you still have to move it around. You still have to turn it on. You still have to turn it off. You got to manually adjust a lot of the stuff. Now, when you go into some of the more expensive packages, so as James mentioned, Elgato, they make a great set of lights. They also make a ring light as well, but then they have a really cool feature. And it's if you have, and this is again about leveling up your live stream. So if you happen to buy their Stream Deck, it's literally it's a USB device that plugs in, and you can touch different things like different buttons and have it do different actions. For example, at the beginning of every live show that I run, I can easily do this with a touch of a button. So I can be like, okay, let me change my Twitter username without having to go to Twitter, and let me send out this tweet. So that's 2 buttons, two button presses. And then when I'm finished, let me change my name back or something. So, it can control that, but it can also control your lights. So it can control the Elgato ring light, the Elgato key lights. So those can all be controlled right with the press of a button. So you have to look at it like this. You're spending money on, you're spending money on a bit of an automated system. So if you buy the pieces that work together, it seems like you're spending money, but then you have to look at it like this. Well, I'm not going to be taking these things up and down. They're small enough to where they're not going to take up much of my office, versus if I buy like the 3-point lighting system, for example, I have 3 lights that are literally all going to be in front of me. So I have to have a reasonable amount of space to work in. So as far as, Corey's point here, what are my thoughts on the 3-point lighting system? I think that, again, I mean, if you're going to light a green screen, 3-point lighting system, you got to have that for sure, because you want to make sure you light both sides and obviously make sure you light yourself as well. But those types of lights do take up a significant amount of space. That's one thing you got to work on. So if you're in a small space and you're trying to have a 3-point lighting system, you want to make sure that you don't have too much shadow, because if you do, you're going to then, for example, you might have a shadow behind you because you don't have enough space to move the lights or things like that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'm put this out there because you started talking about Stream Deck, and Julie, one of your coworkers, was talking about some possible future integration coming to StreamYard with the Stream Deck. That's going to be huge, right? If and when, I'm gonna say when that comes to fruition, that's really going to be a game changer, I think, for the platform, and because I've got mine here and would love to integrate that into what I'm doing with the StreamYard platform. So when that happens, unless you want to talk about
nothing I can
groundbreaking now.
I don't have any. I wish I don't have any release date on that, but I could say that I know it's something right now. It's on our roadmap. It's on our roadmap. It's a question we often get, so it's definitely something that we're listening to and working on. So I'd say for now, I mean, there's a lot of people that ask us for it. They ask for, they ask for like they ask for the integration with it. And I think there's some people that are doing some things with it. But the thing you have to remember is, if you decide to go the let's say the hacker route, but like third party route, whatever that is, just know that like it may not work 100%. So it could work. It may take a little effort, and then we update something and it may break. So
it's not very clean, because I have taken advantage of that one particular workaround that was offered, and it's not clean. So when it comes to fruition and it's integrated into the platform, that's definitely going to be better. Christian, I want to be cognizant of your time, man, and I know you are a busy man. You're all over the place. You got shows going. You got probably going to jump on Clubhouse in a little bit as well too, right? And spend some time on that.
I don't know if I'm going to do Clubhouse. I mean, here's the thing. I think it's a good idea, but it's not. That's the thing. A lot of people think it's new. Clubhouse has been out for a while.
It's not. No, that's true. It's not. That is a good point.
It's been out for a few years, actually. The only reason why it's getting any sort of play is because celebrities started using it. A couple of people, like I think it was Kevin Hart, maybe, started using Clubhouse. On there. But here's the thing. It's not any different than, so Twitter's been working on Spaces. So Twitter's been working on Spaces, in the last number of months. I talked about that on my show. I know Facebook obviously is also trying to move into the audio only aspect. Then there's also podcasting. And then obviously don't forget, radio used to do all of this. But granted, here's the thing. You could do
That's radio. Where the SM7B started. That's where that microphone started.
And, and here's the thing. I mean, radio, the only thing it didn't allow was you didn't have the ability to talk back to somebody. You could listen and tune in, but you could always call into the radio station, and then it was up to them to choose whether to bring you in or not. So for all these people that are out there like saying, oh, it's this new thing, it's not new, to say, oh, it's the next social media platform. Like, no, it's not. I mean, it's been out there for a while. So
it's the new sexy thing, because we couldn't go to South by Southwest this year, right? And this is where it typically would have exploded. So there it is. I'm the realist.
And you have
where
to
you at, Christian?
How you get stuff done too. I mean, that's the other thing.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you can spend all your time on Clubhouse, for example, or you can spend. So you have to look at it like this: as a business or anyone who's trying to grow anything that's important to them, you have to divvy up your time enough. So like, you can't spend 90% of your time consuming content and 10% producing if you want to see any sort of results. If you, for example, want to see results, you've got to, maybe it's, hey, I spend 20% let's flip that around. I spend 20 or 25% of my time consuming content, 20-25% of my time, doing something else, like coming up, brainstorming ideas. And then the rest, the 50% is the execution, if you want to actually get somewhere. That's the thing. A lot of people, they can easily fall into the consuming trap, and it's not a bad thing. But if you're somebody that's trying to do everything, you're going to feel very burnt out because you're not getting anything done. And you're not getting anything done because you're consuming too much content.
Because you're doing too much.
You got to shut the fire hose off every so often.
That's it, man. Right? You can't drink from it all the time, right? You gotta know what you can do, know your limitations, and take advantage of your team if you got one. So. I've got this custom link up here. This is to your Launcher Live show,
cool. Very
but
cool. Awesome.
where else can folks find you in terms of getting information from you and what you're up to?
So if you want to connect with me, you can just look up my name. I mean, it's so easy, right? So it's Christian Karasiewicz. Look, just look it up. And I'm happy to connect with you, whether that's on whatever platform, doesn't matter. And then the other thing also is my show, Social Chatter. That's at Social Chefs. So I've got a culinary arts degree as background as well. So that's hence where the social chefs side came in.
Okay.
It's about learning the fundamentals of social media, digital marketing, and then applying that to what you do. Because it literally is just learn the fundamentals and apply it to what you're doing. And then, hey, you move in the next network, same thing. Fundamentals, apply. Not
like everything. It's like everything. It's like everything in life, right? And know what you're doing before you go out there and try to do something. And those links, I will put those in the show notes so folks know exactly where to keep up with you. Christian, man, I thank you, man. It was an interesting show, right? I mean, we got to see that Mac M1 have a couple of challenges. We got to see your.
I think it's the hub. Actually, I think I'm going to have to go order one of these hubs. So after we get off of this, I'm going to have to chat with you about which dock you recommend, because I've actually been looking at quite a few of them. So we'll talk about that offline.
Definitely, brother. Definitely,
thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, anytime. I appreciate you. Let's continue to stay in touch. I know we talk on social about all kind of different things, but it was my pleasure definitely having you on the show, and I look forward to staying in touch, brother. Be good.
Sounds good. Thank you.